hard enough, the memory might eventually return to her. Her legs tired quickly, and she sighed with relief when she saw a bench by the side of the road. Vivian couldn't understand why the city would place a bench, a nice wooden bench, there, not even near a bus stop. It was a waste of taxpayers' money. If George knew about this, he'd be fuming. He'd been a public servant all those years, a Superior Court judge, a fine one, too, a man of principle and character. How proud Vivian was of him. Still, she was so grateful for somewhere to sit, she wasn't about to complain. George was the one who freely voiced his opinions about matters of civic responsibility and what he called City Hall's squandering of resources. While she listened to her husband's opinions, she didn't always share them. She had her own thoughts when it came to politics and things, but she usually didn't talk about them with George. That was something she'd learned early in her marriage. George was so convinced of the validity of his views that when hers differed, she kept them to herself. Sitting on the hard bench, she glanced about, hoping to find a landmark. Oh my, this was a busy street. Cars whizzed past, their lights blinding her until she felt dizzy. She wasn't nearly as tired now that she was sitting. That was good, because she needed to think. Thinking was important. Forgetting fundamental facts, like her address, her phone number, people's names, distressed her. This happened more and more often now that George had died, and it frightened her. Perhaps, if she closed her eyes for a moment, that would help. She'd try to relax, to clear her mind, since all this worry only made her memory less reliable. It was downright chilly now that the sun had gone down. She should have brought a sweater, but she'd been working in the garden earlier, and it had been hot. Her irises were lovely this year, even though her garden was in sad shape. For years, it had been her pride, and she hated the way it looked these days. She did what she could, but so much else needed to be done. Weeding, pruning, planting annuals. After dinner, she'd decided to do some watering and remembered that she hadn't collected the mail. That was when she'd gone out, planning to walk to the neighborhood mailbox. And now here she was, lost and confused and afraid. Something brushed her shoulder and Vivian opened her eyes. Joy coursed through her veins before she blinked, certain her mind had betrayed her. George? Her husband of 59 years stood directly beside her, shadowed under the nearby streetlight. His smile warmed her, and she straightened, eyes wide open, terrified he'd disappear. George had come to help her, come to save her. That is you, isn't it? He didn't answer, but stood there plain as could be. He looked younger, she thought, admiring his broad shoulders and his confident posture. He'd always been such a handsome man. They'd been high school sweethearts and known each other their entire lives. Vivian felt she was the luckiest girl in the world when George asked her to marry him. They'd struggled through the war years, newlyweds and apart for nearly 3 years while he was fighting in Europe. Then he'd gone to college to get his law degree on the GI Bill. That time of struggle had paid off, though, and after a few years of private practice, he'd been invited to join the bench. George had been the one and only love of her life, and she missed him terribly. How like him to come to her now, in her hour of need. Vivian reached out to touch him, but George backed away. She dropped her hand abruptly, biting her lower lip. No. Of course, she should have realized she couldn't touch him. One couldn't touch the dead. I'm lost, she whispered. Don't be angry with me, but I can't find my way home. He smiled again, and she was so relieved he wasn't upset with her. She'd forgotten things before he died, too, and sometimes he got frustrated with her, although he tried to hide it. She'd even stopped cooking, but that was because she'd forgotten so many of her recipes. The ones in cookbooks were too hard to read, too confusing. But George never complained, and often heated soup for both of them. Vivian felt she should explain what had happened. I went out to get the mail, and I must have decided to go for a walk because when I looked up I wasn't anywhere close to the house. He stretched out his hand and she got to her feet. Can you take me home?